Hey YouTube, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you. This is actually a pretty cool blade. This is the Esee Avispa. This is, of course, as you can see, the tan handle and the stonewash finish. It does come in a few different colors and blade finishes. I don't know if there's a satin option, but there's definitely a black blade that you can get. And there's a bunch of different colors. And I think at least one, maybe two, KnifeWorks or Knife Center or one of those has some exclusive handle colors that you can't get anywhere else. This is not from there. This handle you can get from anywhere. Now, I've got to say by way of introduction that this is an Esee knife. That is, it's sold as an Esee Avispa. However, Blue Ridge Knives is the company responsible for this knife. Esee has licensed the name to them, and same with the Zancudo. So if you look on Esee's website for this knife, you won't find it there. There's one sort of page that's sort of a disclaimer saying, you know, the Esee Avispa and Zancudo are designed by Blue Ridge Knives. They were are manufactured and owned and everything by Blue Ridge Knives. They were designed, however, by Mike Perrin and Jeff Randal, who are, you know, the main guys behind Esee and the designers of all the Esee knives that you've seen, and also the designers of this knife, the Rat Model 1. Now, I'm not going to do a comparison for the first part of the video, but I'm going to follow up with one after I'm sort of done the main discussion of this knife. We'll discuss this on its own merits, and then I'll bring in this knife and do some comparison at the end, okay? Now, that's, you know, by way of introduction, you should know that, you know, it's designed by the guys from Esee, but this knife is sort of manufactured, owned. Everything about it is up to Blue Ridge Knives, except for, of course, licensing fees, I'm sure. Now, size and weight on this is actually very good. 3.5-inch blade, 5-inch handle, weighs in at only 4.4 ounces. And I want to show you something that's really impressive about a knife at this price point. And that is, if you look in here, you can see that there is a stainless steel liner on the FRN side. And not only is it recessed into the FRN, but it's also milled out. Check that out. That's a real win on the part of this blade. And I haven't seen other reviewers mention that, and I'm really surprised they haven't, because one of the things that stands out about this knife in terms of size and weight is it's a very light knife for its size. And as you know, if you've seen other videos by me, I really like when a knife does that, when they get a lot of blade for a fairly small package. And the other important dimension to think about in that regard is this dimension. This is less than 3/8 of an inch thick. So now you have a 4.4-inch knife that's less than 3/8 of an inch thick. It carries like a dream. If you're looking for an EDC knife, this thing is really, really hard to beat because of its price, because of its shape and functionality, because of its toughness, and because of that thin profile in your pocket. This is a really, really good EDC option. Now, in terms of competitive options, I don't normally do that, but I will in this video because I feel like this knife is designed directly to compete with the Rat Model 1. Okay, I really feel like, you know, Esee might be, or the guys from Esee might be sticking it to Ontario just a little bit because somehow they broke their association with Ontario. I'm not sure how all that played out, but I know that there's no longer sort of a connection, and so who knows how that happened. But this knife is definitely a response to this one, okay? Definitely very competitive, compete directly with one another, and they're very similar. Now, in addition to that, there's a knife that I think is maybe even a little closer, and that is the Schrade SCH-104, or in this case, they're the exact same knife, manufactured in the same place, just slightly different finishing. This is the Enlin EL08, which essentially is the Schrade SCH-104. This knife has a lot of the same features. Now it's G10 here instead of FRN. Both stainless steel frame locks. This one's definitely beefier. It's heavier. The steel and the blade are, the frame and the blade are both quite a bit thicker. But the price point's not that far different. I think there might be $3 or $4 difference between those two blades. Anyway, let's go back to this one now that you've got a handle on size and weight. So just to give you very quickly, 8.5 inches overall, 3.5-inch, 5-inch. 4.4 ounces. Okay, so that's just to remind you, because I know I talked about some other knives and stuff there. Now let's get into the blade itself. The blade is actually really, really good. It's sort of a modified drop point, full flat grind, stonewash finish, and this blade shape is extremely functional. I've done a bunch of cutting with it, all kinds of things from cardboard to wood to food preparation, paper cutting to test sharpness. Excellent utilitarian blade shape. Now I will say it came from the factory sharp, but not hair shaving sharp. I will put my own edge on this, and because it's Aus 8 steel, it'll take that edge well, it'll hold it well. Definitely Aus 8 is my favorite budget steel. I think it far surpasses HCR13 in a number of different ways, in toughness, in edge retention, even in the look that it finishes with. I think Aus 8 is superior. That's just my opinion. I'm not a metallurgist, and feel free to disagree with me. But my experience has just been that Aus 8 performs better. Even this is probably Aus 8A, which is sort of the cheaper version of Aus 8. So this is not going to be as good as the Aus 8, say in a cold steel knife or a SOG knife, but it's going to be pretty good. As far as I'm concerned, it does outperform HCR13 MOV. I know, maybe you just love HCR13 MOV, and that's awesome. More power to you. My experience has been Aus 8 is the superior steel. So that's my take on the blade. I've been really impressed with this blade, and I've cut everything you can think of with it. That is, I mean, reasonable to cut. Food, paper, wood, that kind of stuff. I've cut it all plastic, and it's performed really well in all of those situations. Now, the deployment on this is via thumb stud, and it is, of course, a frame lock, and so those things kind of go together. Deploys pretty quickly. It does take a little bit of getting used to, but that's pretty much true with any knife. I can remember when I first got this knife, I couldn't deploy it quickly, but now I can snap it right out. So breaking in a knife is important. Deploys very nicely and very smoothly. Now I will say about that the bushings are a little smaller than I'd like to see. I doubt I'll be able to get you to look at those. You can kind of see. So the black points there are the bushings in there, and they're not very big. There's only about this much bronze bushing around that pivot. I would like to see larger washers there. Just gives more stability to the blade. Now this blade is solid as a rock, and there's lots of knives that I have that don't have very big bushings. It's just that every time that I open a knife up and find these little tiny bushings, I wish they were bigger. Just adds one extra little bit of strength. And I don't think, let's be honest, a bronze washer is not going to ruin your whole knife design and, ruin your price point and everything. You could easily step it up without, making very many significant changes. Now, the frame lock is good, but you can see the lockup is a little bit late. And I will say I like the way it disengages. Better than some of the frame locks I have. You can see if I turn it to this side that there's a little bit of metal showing here, and that gives you enough room to get your finger in and actuate that lock. Now, we're not at the clip yet. I do like the clip. I may as well just tell you now. I like the clip, really, really well designed. However, in the tip down option, which is where I have it and which is what I prefer, the clip actually pushes on the lock and does make the knife a little harder to unlock. It actually adds strength to the lock. Now maybe you like that. Maybe you're thinking that'll serve as sort of a lock bar stabilizer, and I'm sure it kind of does. But I can tell you there's a noticeable difference between when I first got the knife and it came with the clip up here, and then I moved it down to this point. There's a big difference in the feel of this lock now that I've changed the location of that pocket clip. Okay, so you just need to know that if you're going to make that same change, you can see that the pocket clip lands right on the lock and does push down on it. Okay, so that's kind of important to know. I already mentioned, but I will point out one more time that there is a stainless steel liner on the FRN side. It is milled out, which is pretty impressive for a knife at this price point. The lanyard hole is nice and big, and the FRN in this Avispa is actually quite grippy. This handle is very comfortable. And as I said, when I was doing quite a lot of cutting with this, I did not find any hot spots or discomfort. And you can see it's fairly well rounded and put together, so you wouldn't expect to see have any issues along those lines. So yeah, very comfortable. It is open construction, which is nice for cleaning, and it's all Torx bit, which is nice. By the way, this is something that I often find on cheaper knives. When I did take these screws out and move them down here, they were threaded really well. I had no issues with them wanting to, you know, thread odd. Had no issues with the bit not fitting nice and securely and snugly in the screws. And a lot of times I have had those issues on cheaper knives. They'll use, you know, lower, you know, standards in terms of the manufacturer of the screws they buy, because they want to get the cheapest ones, and they will, and then you'll go to use it and find out the steel is soft and the threads are not high, you know, well defined, and you just have issues just trying to move something as simple as a pocket clip. That's really annoying. And so this knife, I had no problems. All the screws seem to be very well put together. They may not be hardened steel, but they're certainly better than a lot of the low price options that I have. Overall, I've got to say that this knife is an excellent everyday carry knife. The size and weight are excellent. Because of that blade shape, it's a very passive blade. You know, you don't get that sort of aggressive tactical feel at all from this knife. So you can, you know, even though it's larger, I think you'd get away with using it and taking it out in a lot of different situations where, you know, let's say if you were carrying a paramilitary or even the SGH 104, people may be like, whoa, that's quite a knife. This, because the blade shape looks fairly passive, I think you'd get away with using it in public situations more readily. Now, that's my take on this knife. It's a really good knife, fantastic everyday carry, and I do think that it'll perform really well with, you know, field use, sort of outdoor bushcraft type of stuff. It's not a fixed blade, and of course I'll always recommend that if you're going to go camping or if you're going to go hiking, really be in a situation where you may have to pound on your knife, take a fixed blade. Always take a fixed blade. But I am going camping this weekend, I hope, and this is going to be the knife I carry as a pocket knife. So I do think it would perform well with a lot of little camp tasks and even fire prep and stuff like that. So like this knife, do recommend it, especially for this price. I think it's doing a lot of things really well. I'm a fan of the steel. I'm a fan of the milled out liner, the size and weight. It carries really, really well. Just a lot of good stuff happening here. And in fact, even just in terms of design, I love the way that they carried the stonewash finish from the blade into the handle. Just gives some consistency. And stonewash is nice because it doesn't show wear and use very easily. So there you go. That's my take on the Esee Avispa. Definitely a fan of this knife. And if you're interested in getting one, I don't think you'll be disappointed with the performance or the usefulness of it. Now, this is where we're going to transition. So if you just wanted to see information about the Avispa, you know, you can kind of move out and go elsewhere now. I'm going to take a few minutes though and do just a little comparison between the Avispa and the Rat Model 1. These are definitely very similar knives. They're both designed by the same people, and as I said before, I think they're specifically designed to compete with one another. Essentially, this is the answer to this knife. Okay, so let's start off with size and weight. The Rat is a little bit bigger, but like by 1/16 of an inch. It does weigh more, about ½ an ounce more. Blade shape is very, very similar. Now, the handle is much thicker, of course, on the Rat. And by the way, they actually could reduce this width quite a bit by recessing these liners instead of having them the way they are now. If you recess these liners into the FRN handles, you could save, you know, almost 1/8 of an inch in width and become very close to the width of the Avispa. Now, both full flat ground blades. I don't think there's significant difference in the performance of these blade shapes to warrant saying one is better than the other. They're both full flat ground. They're both extremely useful, and I have I've got a ton of use on the Rat Model 1. I mean, a ton. This was my EDC for over a year. I can say that this blade shape is excellent. Very, very good performer. I don't think this is any slouch either. Now, it's a little bit thinner, and that may give it an edge in certain tasks. Let's say you're cutting cheese, something that kind of sticks to the blade. Let's say you're cutting fruit or a tomato. Yeah, this blade would probably come out just a little bit ahead of the Rat Model 1, but they're very, very close. The two blades are so close, too close to call almost. Now, in terms of the handle, obviously you've got a liner lock and a frame lock. Conventional wisdom is definitely that frame locks are stronger than liner locks, and that's probably true. Now, I don't see any videos out there of anyone, doing the weight-bearing tests on these two knives to see which one fails first. However, for the use that virtually anyone is going to put on a folding knife, and frankly that anyone should put on a folding knife, both of these locks are going to be totally fine. Now, I will say there's a difference in actuation. This lock is just a little easier to get your hands on than this one. Neither of them are great. The Benchmade Axis lock is probably the easiest lock to actuate and still doesn't sacrifice anything for strength. Now, both of them deploy very well. Don't have any issues with either one, as you can see on left and right hand. I will say this. The edges on these thumb studs are slightly sharper than these, okay? So the thumb studs are a little more comfortable on this guy than on this guy. The lock is a little more comfortable on this guy than on this guy. So toss up. In terms of deployment, yeah, both work really well. This one, lanyard hole, is slightly larger. Now, I actually prefer the clip just a little on the Esee, but they're very close to the same, and I'm not going to complain about either one. By the way, they both carry almost to the same depth. The lanyard hole, sorry about that, I just had to close the knives. The lanyard hole is bigger on the Avispa, so if you're really into that, or if you are planning to make this sort of a real outdoor hiking type of knife, I think it'd do great in that roll. And maybe you want to put some bright orange or bright yellow or moon glow paracord on here. You've got a little more room with this knife than this one. I think that probably covers it. So here you have a knife that's a little bit lighter, a little bit easier to carry. Here you have a knife that's a little bit thicker. The blade is a little bit thicker. I think both of them are going to perform equally well at virtually any task you could come up with. And as I said, I've got a lot of experience with both of these knives. I can't really give an edge to either one of them. They both perform well. This one just carries a little bit better. And stylistically, now by the way, this Rat Model 1 is just the black one. Stylistically, I do prefer the Esee just a little. I think not a lot of people have commented on the fact that the Rat Model 1 is kind of an ugly knife. And it is. However, it's extremely functional. So that's my comparison between the two. Really, really a matter of preference because these knives are so close. And I think they're designed to be so close that it's hard to call. I'll give a minor edge to the Avispa only because of the thinness and because of the milled out liner. I mentioned that in the earlier review. But that milled out liner, if Rat would mill these out, they would save a lot of weight and would actually probably come close to this knife. The other thing that the Rat could do is recess the liners into the handles, and that's what they've actually done with the Avispa. And so I feel like those two things are slight improvements over the Rat Model 1. And so overall, both of these are going to perform really well for you. I'm going to give a slight edge, as I said, to the Avispa because of those minor improvements. I'm not going to comment too much on the lockup because, as I said, I think they're again too close to call. But both excellent knives. I don't think if you're interested in either one of these, you will not be disappointed. I can say from a lot of experience that the Rat is a fantastic knife, still one of the best value for dollar folders on the market. It's going to just perform above and beyond the Call of Duty for virtually anything you need. That said, The Avispa does not have the track record, okay? This has been a classic knife for a long time. The Avispa doesn't have the track record of the Rat Model 1, but I don't think it's a bad knife either. I think it's a great blade. It's going to carry well. It's going to perform well for you as well. That's my take on those two knives. I hope you enjoyed the video. Any questions, any comments, feel free to weigh in down below. All right, talk to you later, YouTube. Thanks for watching. I know this was a long one, essentially 2 videos in one, so that's why the length get up to 20 minutes. Talk to you soon.